Welcome to the Language of Abundance, part 2 of 3, empowering your language to create a whole new reality. In the last video, we talked about the watch-outs, the things to pay attention to that you may be doing and might not even be aware of that are diminishing your power and your abundance through your language. Now, in this video, I'm going to dive into things that you can do, the shifts that you can make to create more empowerment and more abundance. So I have, I think, 7 things, but you never know with me. I might add or remove 1 or 2. Who knows? One of my favorite phrases ever that I use all the time and that my clients use all the time, and you've probably heard me say it in these videos, is I invite you to consider. I invite you to consider is a great way to influence other people without having them resist you or push back. So here's the thing. When we want somebody to do something or we want to give somebody advice, we often say, you should do this or you should try this. Now, the word should, as we talked about in the last video, is kind of a trigger word. And it triggers kind of a negative relationship to the thing that we're suggesting. You should work out more. You should eat less, right? We hear the word should in the context of all the things that we aren't and all the things that we're not enough as, right? So should is very closely associated to that energetic. And so when people hear the word should, whether it's conscious or subconscious, there's often kind of a reaction to it, like I don't want it. And so, for example, when I lead my mastermind groups, I tell people, please avoid the word should. I invite you to consider using I invite you to consider instead. So that's how we get around the word should. It serves 2 purposes. When we say, I invite you to consider this idea, number 1, we're allowing the person the sovereignty to either consider it or not consider it. It's an invitation. They don't have to say yes. And the second thing we're doing is a little more subtle, just as important in my opinion, which is we're detaching from it as well. A lot of times when we say you should do something, we are attached to that person doing the thing. And so when we say, I invite you to consider, there's a looseness to it. There's a detachment to it. There's an allowing of the other person to make their sovereign decision. We're not attached to whether they take our advice or don't take our advice. So it's a good training all around to drop the word should and replace it with, I invite you to consider. The second one is to drop the usage of this made me feel, you made me feel, he makes me feel, she makes me feel, and instead adopt I feel. Straight up, just owning your own emotions. I feel angry, I feel frustrated, I feel sad. A lot of times we give up our power by not owning our feelings. And when we start to practice this, the cool thing is we can start to help other people not project onto us the cause of their feelings, right? So when we are in sovereignty around our feelings, people, whether it's conscious or subconscious, often notice that and just happen to naturally start to take on and separate their own emotions from ours. In other words, when people see us owning our stuff, then they often start to own their stuff too. So instead of saying like, you make me feel crazy, you can say, you know what? I've got this thing where I feel crazy when this happens. And I'm working on it. I own it. It's mine. It's not yours, not your fault, not your problem. It's on me. The third thing that I invite you to do is to drop the hedging language. Hedging language is where we try to not fully own our expression, when we're not fully owning that which we're claiming. So in other words, hedging looks a lot like, I see this a lot with women, especially in groups, where women will have an idea, or someone, let's just say someone, has an idea that he or she wants to share, and then they hedge before they share the idea. And what that sounds like is, maybe this is a stupid question, but I don't know if I'm supposed to ask this question, but, or whatever it is, this idea, you might hate it, but I'm going to bring it up anyways. It's a way of separating ourselves from what we're putting out there, not fully owning it, just in case it gets rejected, we can feel a little bit better about it. It's like, oh, well, I told you it might be a stupid idea anyways. Rather than really standing in our ideas and our expression and what we're bringing, our contribution that we're bringing to the table. Now, before I dive into 4, 5, 6, and 7, I do want to take a moment and invite you to like this video if you're getting something out of it. Maybe subscribe to my channel and even share any of your empowering language below. Number 4 is a new one for me. This is my mantra the last year or so. It's the phrase is, I speak truth supported by love. Now, this is a really important phrasing of this phrase. I speak truth supported by love. In the past, I don't know about you, but I've had issues with not wanting to, quote unquote, hurt people's feelings, as if I were responsible for other people's feelings. Okay, now I know I'm responsible for speaking kindly, I'm responsible for my communication, and I'm also not responsible for how somebody receives my communication, especially when I speak truth supported by love. Now, the flip side of this doesn't really work. I speak love supported by truth is different. A lot of times when we love somebody or we want to be loving, we don't tell the truth because we're worried that we will hurt somebody. And so what I've taken on in my life and what I invite you to consider in yours is, especially with primary relationships, like with clients and with close friends and people that you're choosing. It might be a little different with family because I know it's sometimes we just got to deal with family, right? But where we're creating our relationships, where we're curating the people that we choose to have in our lives, that we choose to work with, that we choose to invest our time and energy into, I find that it's really helpful to have these relationships based on truth. The problem is the truth can be painful for some people to hear. And so it's really important that that truth be supported by love, that it be delivered from an open heart. It's one thing to tell the truth with anger and meanness, and it's quite another to tell the truth from a place of really open-hearted love. And so my commitment to my clients, for example, is truth supported by love. The 5th thing is to look at your language and swap out, whenever possible, if not always, the word but for the word and. The reason for that is that the but basically creates polarity, which we've talked about before. It creates separation. Let's say, for example, and this is a real clue into your subconscious thinking, I want to have a family, but I also want to be successful. Somebody said that to me the other day. And I thought, why isn't that an and? I want to have a family and I want to be successful. Completely different resonance there, right? The first one belies an assumption that you can't have both, that they are somehow in opposition to each other, family and success. The second one presupposes that you can have both, that you can transcend that polarity. And so the but versus and is a big, big thing that I see in a lot of language. So just observing when you say but and see what would happen if you replaced it with and. Just testing it out. Just try it out. Practice whenever you catch yourself saying but. Just, how would that sentence sound if I switched it to and? And notice what you notice about what comes forward when you switch the word to and. Number 6. One way that we can disempower ourselves is by not knowing stuff. Here's what I mean by that. I coach with a lot of people. This is just a little example. I'll ask somebody, let's say, well, what do you think your value proposition should be, for example? I don't know. So when people respond to something like that with I don't know, oftentimes it's just a way of giving up power and hoping that I'll answer the question for them. Or basically a disempowering way of just being like, I don't want to deal with this right now. So I always press. I always go a layer deeper and I say, well, if you did know, what would it be? And so here's a way to deal with the I don't know, the giving up of power to confusion or not wanting to deal with something in the moment. If you find yourself wanting to say, I don't know, like, where do you want to go to dinner? I don't know. What if you came into and found instead the language to fill in the blank here? What I know for sure is. So even if you don't know the answer to that question, instead of responding with I don't know, disempowerment, responding with, well, Well, what I know for sure is, what do you want to have for dinner? Instead of, I don't know. Well, what I know for sure is I want to have fun tonight. Or what I know for sure is I want to take it easy tonight. What do you know? Focus on that. This phrase is so powerful that Oprah Winfrey wrote a book, and what I know for sure is the title of that book. I love that phrase because the implication is, well, I don't know everything, but what I know for sure is this. And it applies just as well to what you want to eat for dinner as to what your value proposition is and what you want out of your life. What do you know? And then the last one is shifting out future tense for present tense, or just noticing the tenses and when we tend to disempower ourselves with the tenses. For example, I want to work out, or I want to write a book, right? These are all things in the future, and that's great. That can be a vision. What I invite you to do is bring it into the present tense, and what are you working on right now towards that vision? What can you accurately, truthfully claim? Right now, I'm working on finding the right idea to write my book about. Right now, I'm exploring gyms in my area to figure out where I want to work out. What are you doing right now creates empowerment because it's an action that you're taking in this moment rather than pushing it off into the future. And in that same vein, for past tense versus present tense, let's say that you've always done things a certain way, and that's a disempowering way of being. Like, I don't know how to handle my time. I don't know. I always procrastinate. That's a disempowering statement of identity based in the past. Bringing it into the present, I am mastering the art of prioritizing my time, right? Now you're making it present tense. What are you doing in this moment? That's way more empowering than fixating or freezing an identity in some past version of you and the way you used to be. What is true in this moment, in real time, right now? And last but not least, this is my bonus number 8. When in doubt, breathe. Slow down. Pay attention to the resonance of your words and what you're actually conveying and what your energy is as you're saying what you're saying. A lot of times we're just mindless and not thinking about what we're saying. So when you're in struggle, when you're in doubt, when you're feeling disempowered, slow down, breathe, get present, and just deeply listen and feel into what is actually true in this moment. I hope this was helpful for you. If you want more around empowering yourself in the area of business and of course life, let's connect. You can find out more about my programs at superstarbusinessbreakthrough.com.